As far back as I can remember, fall has always been my favorite season. The only thing that tops it is when the first week of winter collides with fall, before all of the leaves have made their way to the ground. The combination of leaves and snow is one of my favorite sights of any point in the year. I love the way that the morning light reflects off the snow and illuminates the remaining leaves in the trees, providing just a bit of color, no matter which way I look. Of course, I started my day with a cup of coffee. I mean, I had to if I was waking up this early. I knew that the snow had fallen and the leaves were still on the trees, so it was going to be perfect conditions regardless of what the light looked like. Well, good morning everybody. I hope you're doing well. It's been a long time since I've made a video. I've been in the middle of moving from California to Colorado this summer, so I've had my hands full. That being said, I'm a little bit disappointed that I missed most of fall, pretty much. As you can tell, it's been snowing pretty heavily overnight. Well, maybe not heavily, but we got our first snowfall overnight. I was sick 2 weeks ago, so it was a pretty nasty, rough cold or flu or something, and not COVID. But I had to cancel my trip to Zion, so that was a major bummer. But last night we had some snow falling, so I'm out bright and early this morning before sunrise, hoping to go on a bit of a hike here locally. So far I'm the only one here, and it looks like it's going to be a bit of a cloudy morning. I was hoping for really clear skies so we could get that, great morning, colorful sunrise sky, but it's pretty overcast, so I get to take my time a little bit more this morning, enjoy some coffee, and plan out the route that I want to take. Okay, I found a scene that's really quite beautiful with all of these cascading mountains of snow and grass, and then these two trees branching up against just the first light of sunrise coming up. So still too dark for the 5 DSR, so I'm going to do this long exposure on the R5. But yeah, I think this is going to be a really subtle, beautiful winter image. Going to be a long exposure, probably about 15 to 20 seconds if I had to guess. I'm going to shoot around f2.8 on the 35mm lens that I'm using as my video lens. Okay, for this scene I'm going to try something different. It's still really dark, and the sun hasn't really added that extra layer of dimensionality to this scene behind me with these two trees. So what I did is I took a first exposure where I focused just on the tree and brought the colors out in the sky. But then I just did a second one where I actually turned on my headlamp. I'll turn around and show you momentarily what I did to bring out those textures of the grasses in the foreground. So you can see behind me right now, they look very flat, but when I shine my headlamp, let me see if I can get it to work, like this, across all these different bumps and undulations in the snow. And I'm going to try to blend these two together to see if I can make a bit more of a three-dimensional feel in the foreground of this image. I'm going to blend it in very subtly, so hopefully it's not super obvious that it's light painted, but I think that having that little bit of extra dimension will really make the foreground in this image stand out. Well, the further I keep walking down this trail, the more likely I think it might be that we could get what's called gap light, where there's just a bit of a gap between the horizon and the clouds off to the east, and that first burst of morning light could just flood through in just a few moments. So I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm crossing my fingers in case it does, which is why I'm filming this segment. So that would be ideal, but otherwise it might just get gradually brighter the closer we get to sunrise. Okay, so the light is bright enough finally that I'm going to start using the 5DSR, and I'm focusing in on this bunch of cottonwood trees. I really like the way that there's this arching shape to the branches with the leaves hanging and the snow just kind of pulling them down. So if I zoom out, you'll see more of the scene. I'm zooming in just enough to cut off the fence along the bottom, but still retaining a lot of these sweeping dark branches through the middle, and then there's all the little leaves that are draped down with the snow covered on top. So I'm not sure if this one will work, but I'm going to give it a try. So I'm shooting at f11 ISO 100. Zoom in, make sure that we're nice and focus around there. And this is probably going to be a pretty long exposure, if I had to guess, given the light. So about 4 seconds, so not too bad. So give this one a try and see how it turns out. All right, zooming in, making sure that these details are nice and pin sharp, and they are. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to try to document this one before it fades. It's really hard to see, but off in the distance this way, I don't know if I can move and it'll show up. Might be too bright on the video, but there's this little sliver between the high clouds and the low clouds where you can just see a strip of the Rocky Mountains. So I wasn't expecting to see any mountains this morning, but as you see on the back of the 5DSR here, you can just see I'm zoomed all the way into 400 millimeters, focusing on this cottonwood off into the distance, and you can see how the mountains are just poking through way off in the distance, and this is just truly spectacular. I was not expecting a scene like this morning, so catching a little bit of that early morning light, but not much. So I'm going to make sure to jump on this as soon as I can before it fades forever. So f11, half a second exposure. There's a few things in here I'll probably want to clone out, but wow, what a surprise. So unfortunately, we didn't get any of that gap lighting that I was hoping would happen, but if you look off to where the sun is rising, there's this string of cottonwood trees with just a sliver of the sunrise horizon, and it's glowing a bright pink color while everything else is white and gray around it. So looks truly spectacular. I've got my 100 to 400 still on, and I'm zoomed in, isolating this bunch of cottonwood trees with the streak of the sunrise light running through the middle. So here I'll move you over so you can see the back of the camera and the composition that I've got set up. And you can see that it's just a really beautiful winter scene with 3 or 4 different cottonwood trees and the sunrise strip of sky running through the middle. I do wish that there was a little bit of fog or haze or something like that that could add a little bit more depth and interest, but a still very beautiful scene, and I'm quite satisfied with this composition. The snow just hanging on what's left of the fall leaves and a little bit of color to add some interest. So I'm at f9, ISO 100, shutter speed of 1/13 of a second, so finally light enough that I can use a bit of a shorter shutter speed. Beautiful. And I'm also thinking too, the more I look at this, I might crop it to be more of a 16:9. I might be able to do that actually in camera. Yeah, here we go. So I'm not going to do that. Put something more in this format. Well, fortunately, it looks like I was wrong about my assumption earlier that we weren't going to get any gap light off in this horizon. We're getting some really beautiful color in the clouds just off to the east. So here you can see the composition that I have set up, which is these 3 or 4 cottonwood trees along the middle third center of the image, with this strip of beautiful light coming from sunrise. And it's actually illuminating just a bit of the clouds overhead too, providing a little bit of texture in that part of the sky. And then I'm not going to focus stack or anything, so I'll let the foreground with the grasses and the snow just kind of fade into the depth of field of the image. So really beautiful, and very thankful that I woke up early for this image. So zoom in, make sure before the light fades that everything is nice and sharp, and yeah, and this looks fantastic. So very satisfied with this scene. Well, with those images, I think I'm going to call it a morning. It's been better than I could have expected, but my feet are absolutely freezing. The light looks like it's just about done for the morning, and the mountains off to the west are completely buried in clouds yet again. So I'm going to hike back to my Jeep and blast the hot air as much as I can, and finish off my coffee on the drive home. So I hope you enjoyed this morning's video and the images from just my local hike around town. Hopefully going to head up into Rocky Mountain National Park for a little bit more adventurous stuff here in the future. So thanks as always for watching, and I look forward to seeing you around in the next one.
I hope you enjoyed this morning's video just as much as I did. Mornings like this, where fall and winter collide, never seem to happen often enough as the fall changes into winter. On my way out, I was fortunate in that the light broke through a break in the clouds, illuminating a few of the subjects that I was trying to photograph earlier. I came away with a few final images, this golden light peering through and illuminating these trees set against a cold, steely background of the early morning sky. Thanks as always for watching, and I look forward to seeing you around in the next one. Stay warm, everyone.